The 2008 housing crash. How bad was it really? Imagine waking up and finding out your home was now worth half of what you actually paid for it. Millions of Americans, though, didn't have to imagine. It actually happened. In places like Las Vegas, home prices dropped 32% in 1 year. Phoenix down 29% in 1 year. And Miami down 26% in 1 year. People are asking me, hey, are we headed for another 2008 type crash? Let's find out today on The Housing Nerd. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Jason Ferrier. I've been a realtor and investor for the last 7 years in Central Ohio. Thanks for joining me today. Let's get going. So first, we're going to look at some metro level data from 2005 through 2015 to really see how home values changed in the top 50 metros in the US. Then we're going to look at some national trends and roll them back, compare them to how they're actually trending against what's happening right now. So this chart I put together in Data Wrapper. I downloaded raw Zillow information and then ran an analysis to figure out how much home prices actually increased or decreased over the GFC years. And this is the top 50 metros only, but this is like startling information. So what I did was I looked at really when did the carnage really begin, right? And where was the carnage the worst? 2009 stands out to me as the year that really saw the largest decrease in home values for much of the US. So you can see Riverside, California takes the spot at number one. At the beginning of my video, I talked about Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Miami, but look at Riverside, down 36% in 2009 alone. That's a drop, folks. Look at Las Vegas, down 32%. Phoenix down 29%, Miami 26%, Orlando 26%, Los Angeles 22%. The hits keep on coming, right? In fact, if you look down this list, what's really interesting is there really aren't a lot of Midwest cities in that top 10 except Detroit, Michigan, down 22% in 2009. So if I zoom out here, I can really get an overview of what happened. And you can see, right, 2005, if you scroll down here all the way down to the US, you can see 11%. So in 2005, the US as a whole was up 11%. Look at Riverside, California, it was up 32%. Vegas was up 38%, right? And then 2006, you can see it's a little less blue, a little more pink, right? Then 2007, a lot more pink and orange. 2008, prices started to drop. They dropped big time. Look at that. Riverside went from 5% up to 14% down year over year. I mean, that's like a 19% swing, right? I put a link to this chart in the description below. Now, where did they actually go down the least? What markets were the most steady? No surprise, it's the Midwest, it's the East, generally speaking. Oklahoma City, 0 drop. Then they had a 2% gain. Then they had a negative 2%. Then they had a 2% drop and another 2% drop. But Buffalo, New York, didn't drop at all in 2009. It was flat, up 2%, 1%, then down 2%. Look at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was down only 1% in 2009, up 3% the next year, 1% up, down 1%. Now look at Columbus, Ohio, where I am. Look at this, down 2%, down 3%, down 3%, 3, and down 5. So that is what? Down 5, 8, 11, 16. So Columbus, Ohio, down through all that carnage, was down 16% versus somewhere Riverside was down over 50%. Crazy. But then look at who gained the most in 2013. Look at this. San Jose, California. It was down 5% in 2012, then skyrocketed up 28% in 2013, then up 16, then up 14. We know where it went from there. Absolutely through the roof. All these cities obviously did. San Francisco, same thing, right? Down 2%, then up 24%. The chart's in the description below, so click it and you can look and sort this data just like I am. Pretty telling. I thought this was a really cool chart I put together. I'm proud of myself. Comment below. Let me know if you're proud of the Housing Nerd. I know I am. Hey, a quick break from the data. I put a ton of time into these videos. The least you can do is subscribe. Please subscribe to the Housing Nerd, like this video, and share it. And please comment. I want to know what's happening in your housing market. Okay, back to my data. Now we're going to switch gears and we're going to look at some national trends. And I wanted to hone in on inventory. Unfortunately, the normal avenues I use, like realtor.com and Zillow, they do not provide inventory data going back that far. This is the inventory of total housing units for sale, new homes and existing homes And they pulled this from the National Association of Realtors, but that information is like a paid info you have to get from the NAR. And I'm not willing to pay for that. We're going to have to use this. We all know that the drop, based on what we just saw, the biggest drop was in 2009, right? From a price standpoint. So these are in millions of units. And so in July of 2009, we had 3.38 million total housing units for sale. Now, the peak was actually in July of 2007. We had 4.04 million housing units for sale at this time. This is like an all-time peak. If we go back and look at the uh, chart here, my heat map, you can tell the price drop really didn't. It started in 2007, but it really didn't take hold until 2008, 2009. That's when the carnage really took place. So it took some time once all that inventory started sitting on the market. You can just tell from the graph, right? It's easy to see. There's the inventory, right? 2007, 4 million units. And people were like, man, we got tons of units out there. Can't sell them. They're just sitting. Prices drop. We're adding supply, hundreds of thousands of units monthly we were adding. And so you can see how it trended from way back. What's this? April of 1986, we had 3 million homes for sale, and it dropped way down here. What's this? This is December of 1994. We had 1.5 million homes for sale. Then it kept going up until it reached an insane peak. Remember, this is new and existing homes for sale. This is total inventory. All right. So that is inventory from a 2008 perspective. Now let's follow it down. I'm sure you've been already doing this on the screen, looking at this. Like, it kept dropping until it was a record low. And I want to say it happened, in February of 2022 or so, 870,000 houses for sale. That's not 870 million. That's 870,000. That's new and existing. That's all 870,000. So now it's trending up. And according to this information, December of 2024, we ended at 1.15 million active listings for new and existing homes. Comment below. I want to know what you think about this data. Pretty startling to me, like where inventory was. So I'm not being rhetorical here. I'm actually trying to be serious. Look at the inventory in 2007, the peak of inventory, 4 million. Now look at the inventory, 1.15 million. So in order to have some type of cataclysmic housing crash, tell me what you think. This is my theory only. We need a lot more inventory. Now, do we need 4 million housing units for sale or 4 million homes for sale? I don't know. I don't know if we need that many. And this is single family homes, by the way, not multifamily. I don't think we need 4 million, but we need a heck of a lot more than we have now. So that is the inventory picture. Now let's look at new homes. How many homes were actually broken ground, new homes to be constructed? And so it's not just permit data, it's actually started data or started houses, right? So the peak, let's look at the peak was back in January 2006, 1.82 million housing starts. The bottom was in February 2009 because builders were like, forget this, we're done with building homes. So we only had 358,000 housing starts that year. Bad time to be in construction. And then now it's gone up because we need more inventory, obviously, 1.05 million housing starts. A lot of people also say that this data is shadow and hidden and false, and it's all fraud, greed, and lies, corruption, and kabuki theater. And let's say that this data is real. We are only at just over a million housing starts. Remember, back in January of 2006, we had 1.82 million housing starts. So we had almost, probably, what is that, 80% more housing starts back during the GFC than we did just a couple months ago in December of 2024. So you tell me if we're headed for some type of cataclysmic crash. We did have housing starts of 1.31 million units, housing units, single family houses in December 2020. So it did go up substantially at that period of time, but now it's dropped. Builders are throttling off probably. So do we have a surplus of new builds? Maybe in certain areas we do, but overall it doesn't look that way. So remember this graph and remember this area right here where we spiked in new home housing starts. And then let's go over here and look at this information. So this again is the total inventory, including new builds. And look where it was like in that period of time. Like in 2020, look at that. May of 2020, 1.55 million total housing units. So we needed the inventory. And thank goodness they built some. Total active inventory of homes for sale has continued to go down. And now it's gone up a little, but it's nowhere near where it was back in 2006, 2007. I think you get my point. Even go back before the GFC, look at the total inventory. It's not even close to where we are right now. We're so far under previous years, it's not even funny. Hence why prices continue to climb. This is what it is. Supply and demand, folks. Okay, so this graph represents the unemployment rate laid over the total active housing inventory of homes for sale. I thought this was really interesting because it shows us what happens with the unemployment rate and the inventory levels. So you can see if we look, and the blue data is the inventory levels, the gray line is the unemployment rate. It doesn't show us inventory levels before 1982 or so. So that's why it's only half the chart. But if I go to the right before the GFC, the unemployment rate was dropping, right? And it actually dropped all the way in December of 2006 to 4.4%. And look at inventory. Inventory was actually skyrocketed. Look at right now, the inventory was 3 million housing units when unemployment rate was 4.6%. Then the unemployment rate started going up and it kept going up. And it ended in November of 2009 at 9.9% with 2.95 million active homes for sale. But the inventory actually built before we had unemployment. I thought that was pretty interesting. Now, look at where unemployment went since then. We all know it went way down. Then it spiked like crazy. Look at that spike during COVID. Nuts, right? 14.9%. Yikes. Then all the way down. It dipped a little bit, up a little bit to now 4.1%, according to this data from the US Census Bureau. So the moral of the story is that we need really two things to really create some type of huge price crash. We need inventory and we need high unemployment. Like, in other words, we know from our past chart that I put together that the real carnage was in 2009. Look at the unemployment rate, 10%. What's the unemployment rate now? 4.1%. What's the inventory back in 2009? 3 million units. What is it right now? 1.15 million units, right? Hardly any. So the point is that you can't have this massive housing crash without probably at least a couple things here: a lot of homes for sale and a lot of people not working. If you're not seeing that, you're probably not going to see massive price crashing, because where can the price crashing come from when there's no homes for sale? And there's not a lot of people right now that want to put their homes on the market. They just don't. That's the way it is. A lot of people are angry about that. They're like, my neighbor, I see these comments on my channel and I feel for people. They're like, man, my neighbor made a bunch of money on his home, or they have a ton of equity in their house because they bought, they're staying put and they're not selling. One day they're going to get theirs and people are going to be in ruination and go bankrupt. But right now, we're not seeing that. We're not seeing home prices drop a ton, mainly because we're not seeing a lot of unemployment. We're not seeing a lot of inventory. So now what do you do with this information on a local level? You can certainly watch the unemployment rate. I would in your local market, and you can watch it nationally, but also watch housing units, watch total active inventory of homes for sale in your area. That can help you get a gauge as to what may happen with prices. If you're not seeing inventory spike rapidly or build in the asset you want to buy, if you want to buy a single family home in a certain neighborhood, if you're not seeing a lot of homes for sale in that neighborhood, you're not seeing that inventory build, prices probably aren't going to come down meaningfully anytime soon. On the other hand, if you see a lot of inventory build, could be a sign prices may start to soften. And you combine that with unemployment, that's a recipe for disaster, obviously, for prices. We can see that clearly from today's exercises. Hey, another key thing you can track in your market and nationally are foreclosures, because if we have a lot of foreclosures, that's going to add to the inventory, and that's going to be a signal that there's a lot of distress in the market. So if you want to keep track of foreclosures and mortgage delinquencies, check out this video right here.